I want to express my gratitude for this opportunity. Really, for us, has been a very wonderful experience to work in the Expo. And I want to invite you to see how we start this project. This project started 2 years ago in a national competition. Sometimes Chile is a very, very far country, a little unknown for the people here in Europe. The world sees us the remote and the geographical, but Luis Fernandez Galeano, one of the most important contemporary critics of architecture in Spanish language, described Chile as remote in space, but close in time. And I believe that the Chilean contemporary architecture confirmed that statement. Chile, the word that gave origin to the name of my country, means where the earth ends in the Aymara language. In Chile, geography plays a starring part in the history. There the Andes, the land of Incas, unfold from north to south as the continent backbone. To live in Chile is to inhabit the widest range of landscape expression. Not very long ago, I traveled regularly from north to south, a distance comparable to traveling between Rome and Madrid, to oversee the construction of a couple of works. In the north of Atacama Desert, a desolate land so dry that there are no fungi or bacteria to destroy the archaeological remains to be found there, while south offers an admirable contrast. There, everything is alive. A dark, cold, and humid forest covers the land, opening up from time to time to make room to rivers and lakes of crystal clear water. Someone said that Chile is somehow a reduction of the planet, where all the climates and topographies of the world meet in 4,000 kilometers of length and 200 kilometers of wide. But coming back to Italy, it's always a precious experience, a rencounter with the origins, and at the same time, a fascinating journey due to the contrast between my world and yours. Here, for you, the landscape is history, while geography in Chile prevails over the human action. In those landscapes, the openness of space appears as one of the most abundant goods of the country. It is from here where the notion of space is always related to the geography scale. In Latin America, the pre-Columbian civilization made the perfect place to worship their gods out of the top of the mountains. The temple was an open space with the sky vault as the only foreseeable limit. In Europe, architecture was the intermediary between man and God. The connection with the divinity gave way in the interior. In a way, I believe that this accounts for the different approach that we, American architects, have towards space. Distance has brought some benefits, though on one hand, it has protected certain identity. On the other hand, it has made of Chile a free and unprejudiced territory where norms still leave room for translation. This renders all certainty uncertain, but at the same time, it's open an invigorating world of opportunity for architecture. The vastly diverse geography, unusual from time to time, along with the multiculturality of its people, constitute the biggest and most stimulating heritage of the country. Chile can be seen the same way we see through a cultural kaleidoscope of a wide array of corners and infinite reflections, where the indigenous and the Hispanic legacy, together with the divergent colonizing stream from Europe in the mid-19th century, blended in fruitful miscegenation. But let's go into the topic of the Expo Milan Chile Pavilion. This project was chosen in public architecture competition, as I said at the beginning. Never, not even from the very beginning, did we experience a single doubt that our pavilion should be good and made. Moreover, at first we thought the building should be made out of a meccano of laminated wood, and that then the pavilion could be moved from one place to another, or ideally, that the pavilion could be moved back to Chile. To develop this idea, we started a trip through the wood history tradition of Chile. Now I invite you to that trip. There in Chile is a beautiful tradition in the wood construction, whose roots are found in the European colonization in America. Minga is one of the most beautiful and surprising traditions of the Chiloé, an archipelago of the south coast of Chile. It is the move of a house, sometimes of a church, from its original place to another in a collective task that involves the whole community. When in land, the houses move with the assistance of a yoke of oxen. And once in the sea, it's moved by boats. In this tradition, we found the virtues of wood, its lightness, its flexibility, and its resistance. Minga is only possible thanks to this unique material, wood. Reusing an existing construction and its material is, without a doubt, evidence of sustainability. Chiloé has been seen the place where wood has reached its glory in Chile. Churches are proof of that. Some of them, built in the 17th century, were born thanks to the Jesuit mission and to the presence of German carpenters' brothers whose skill enriched the local tradition. The definition of these volumes and the classical towers that distinguish them made real lighthouses of this edification for the sailors and the heart of the community. These churches are characterized for their volumetric definition and the plan of a central nave joined by two sides one. The central nave generally has a continuous vault that hangs from the ceiling structures. The two-water ceiling is extended beyond the interior in order to create an exterior open porch towards a wide space that acts as an urban space. A tower of 2 or 3 stretches is erected over the tympanum that crowns the porch. The stretches diminish their section in search of more slenderness. This church, the Church of Achao, is one of the most remarkable churches in the Chiloé. It was built in the 17th century, and it's account for the intervention of learned builders who not only mastered carpentry, but who were also skilled in the art of proportion. Another example, beautiful example, is the Church of Vilupuyi. This is the Church of Vilupuyi, among many others of the 19th century. The church of Cochamó in continental Chile was ahead in the 20th century, is an overwhelming volume that take us to the berms that are part of the southern landscape. I reckon it's interesting to show another important example, taking into consideration what it means, the framework of cultural transference, the Church of Castro. This is an amazing example. It is in the early 19th century building, local interpretation of the Italian architect Eduardo Provasoli's drawing. The original project considered the use of concrete, and its later plaster that mimicked the stone of European churches. But the local constructors decided to reinterpret the project in wood, which was the most familiar technology for them, being loyal to an old building tradition and accounting for, by the way, the virtuosity with which the most delicate details were built. Native wood of larch, cypress, ulmo, and coiwa trees. The exterior was covered with galvanized metal sheets. The neoclassic strange prevailed as a formal dogma beyond the constructive techniques. On the other hand, a series of political, social, and economic events that define a good share of what we are today as a nation took place during the second half of the 19th century. Three of them are the most outstanding in the physiognomy of some of our cities and their architecture. I'm talking about the German colonization in the south of Chile, which didn't stop until the first year of the 20th century. The other two are the nitrate rush in the north and the port boom of Valparaiso, when Cape Horn was the mandatory path for vessels coming from the Atlantic Ocean to the northern Pacific zone. By the end of the 19th century, the German colonization showed the first architecture-related achievement of such difficult undertaking. The settlers made efforts to keep their identity, which is reflected in the construction of an architecture that is directly linked to Germanic tradition. This architecture has greatly determined the imaging of cities like Osorno, Valdivia, Puerto Octay, or Puerto Varas, among others. Time ago, on December, I have been in Garmisch giving a lecture about the Pavilion, and Garmisch is close to München in Germany, and it was amazing how close was that landscape and that architecture to the ones you can see in the south of my country. On another hand, the nitrate peak that took place during the second half of the 19th century until the beginning of the 20th century, which was forested by English and American capitals, turned Iquique into a thriving city. Iquique is in the north of Chile in the desert. A new architecture with Anglo-Saxon origins is imposed over the city. The Georgian English, reinterpreted in the United States, prevails in the northern Chilean port, exhibiting the abundance that sprang forth from the nitrate. The Oregon pine from California is the building material. Balloon frame is used here as a constructive system, a method that grows rapidly thanks to its efficacy, rationality, and economy. The interesting thing about this example in Iquique is that the original model is transformed in Chile in order to comply with the warm desert climate. Big shadow casting eaves or balconies over the facade are originated here. Valparaiso saw the benefits of the mandatory port traffic through the Cape Horn of vessels coming from the Atlantic to the North Pacific until 1914. This privileged condition attracted a cosmopolitan population mainly composed of English, American, German, French, and Italian people. I love this photo because you can see how narrow is Chile. From Valparaiso, at the same time, you can see the ocean, and in the distance, you see that Concagua mountain, the biggest from Los Andes. A splendorous city is built during this prosperity period, all according to the immigrant standard. Valparaiso is the most European city of my country. Victorian-style houses were built in the balloon frame system, covering the external structure with fluted zinc sheets, where standardized doors and windows also come from abroad and are part of the catalogs and illustrated construction manuals. However, in the 20th century, Chile, and particularly in modern times, concrete was the vehicle used to express the new proposed architectural shapes. There are very few interesting examples of wood construction during this period. Emilio Duarte is one of the most remarkable Chilean architects from that period. He built in the 60s the Castro Hostel in Chiloé, and from his modernist vision, interpreted the local architectural tradition. But this architect's ideal material was, without doubt, concrete, and this example in wood was an exception. Another instance to be highlighted out of the few that we have is another hostel in the south of Chile, near Chiloé. It is the Ralun Hostel, where in the 70s, Duarte da Sapo, Christian de Grote, built these cabins and a hostel inspired in the local tradition too. Unfortunately, the hotel was burned in 1990. But this is the cabins. But the person who has now given value to the wood architecture in Chile is José Cruz Ovalle, an architect who works from a poetic rationalism, illuminating the tradition to turn it always in something new. It's really a great, great architect. But, and is from José Cruz, this winery too. Other important work for me are the agricultural factories done by Martín Hurtado. He represented a younger generation. But let me take you back to the beauty churches of Chiloé. The structures of these churches, formed by pieces of wood, generally of native wood, and whose fixation system was made up of joints and wood knocks, was the model that inspired our pavilion of Chile in the 2015 Expo Milan. Nonetheless, the European tradition considered to cover the structure, concealing the beauty of the structure dimension with a layer of wooden boards of alerce, tiles. Alerce is a native wood, that completely surround the facade. But what we want to rescue in the Chilean pavilion is the beauty of the naked structures of all churches of Chiloé. After this travel through the wood history of Chile, let's go inside the Expo Milan. Well, I'm not going to talk about, you know, of course you know more than me about this, but we are, as I said at the beginning, happy to be here, and we have a very, very good location in the Expo. We are between the Decumano and the open theater. And well, there you can see our pavilion. Laminated timber has been chosen as the material to build and to characterize the pavilion. This material, apart from its sensorially and tectonic value, is a renewable resource and its treasure in the environment change. Besides, laminated timber is an industrialized material that provides an homogeneous and appropriate technical control. Chilean wood prestige is asserted in the growing afforestation rates, which differ with the planetary deforestation process. We have brought to Italy radiate pine wood that has been produced in the south of Chile, but that has not been industrialized. The beams has been built in Italy in cooperation with Albertani corporates. Formally, the Chile Pavilion has been outlined as a bridge made of laminated pine wood whose wooden reticulated structure is trusted with expression and formal synthesis. It is a regular volume that is supported by 6 steel pillars, each with 3 arms. This allows us to liberate the noble floor by creating both a visual transparency and the free stroll of the visitors. This strategy establishes a close relationship between the urban space and the pavilion space, narrowing and fusing the line that has been drawn between the private and the public. Constructivity, we have set out a kind of meccano, as I said, where the simplicity and rationality of the systems allow to quickly ensemble the pavilion and dismantle it and it take back to Chile. The idea is that the system and its assembly respond to constructive tradition proper of the material with half wood cast, diminishing the amount of ironwork. The main structure is constituted by the reticulated beam that is located in the line of metallic pillars. The exterior beams provide the pavilion with three-dimensionality, and it also helps to balance the building. The wooden reticulated structure appears from distance as the totality, with the fragment appears in the closeness that relate us to the body and gives the pavilion a human scale, making a resistance strategy out of the tectonic and handcraft when opposed to the seduction of vain spectacle. The pavilion interior has been developed as a neutral space, easily adapted to the programmatic demands that will reach high relevance after the Expo, considering the likely recycling of the building. This neutrality space seems to be relevant topic, particularly in the exhibition area. The several shapes in which art manifests today need ductile spaces able to embrace the different expression. A little travel through the plans. This is the ground floor. Is, as we said, is an open space, but for us was an urban space. We want to be part of the street, and here we have a huge table of 40 meters long, where you can have the taste of Chilean food. Then you go up through a mechanic ramp to the different areas where we are going to have exhibition, videos exhibition. We have, in this case, relied the Chilean exhibition upon audiovisual technology, paying attention to the Expo theme, feeding the planet energy for life. We want to show the geographic and diversity and distinct climates that allows for an agricultural richness of great quality and variety. Also, well, we have in the upper part of the building the offices and a little open space for exhibition and a little theater. But as you can see, the neutrality of the space give us the opportunity in the future and now to have different kind of uses to the building. This is the auditory, small auditory. This photo has been taken today in the morning. And here you have the ramp that goes up to the pavilion, to the different experience. And well, this is, we have a big sala where we want to show part of the geographical and the agricultural qualities of the country. And well, today testing. This is another part of the exhibition. It's a huge box that gives you information, tactile information from all the products of the country. Love of Chile is the theme of this pavilion. Want to account for the chain of affection associated to food, from the sowers, the harvesters, the market slave, right up to the table. The exhibition proposes a linear tour through the geography, its people, its production, to wind up under the shadow of the building on a table that reflects the country hospitality, the love of Chile. Before I end these lectures, this short lecture, I want to express my public gratitude to Sebastián Mallea, he's with me now, to Marta Gallati and Federica Pugliasi. Both are our partners here in Italy, and these three guys make this dream possible. Thanks.